Hey guys, it's Clay. Wanted to get a good update to you. I got the head back from the machine shop on the 6-cylinder, the 223, and a couple things I wanted to point out. First of all, they had the thing for 3.5 weeks, which just is ridiculous to do a valve job on a little 6-cylinder head like this. But you know, the machine shop explained to me that they had to work me in because they're working on a bunch of race engines and stuff like that. So I may have to find a different machine shop if I do stuff in the future. I mean, it just takes too long to get something back from them. And then I was a little disappointed because I turned this thing up on its end and I'm still getting particles out of the inside of it. So for having it 3.5 weeks, 2 of which I think it sit in the hot bath, the rot machine where they rot it out and everything and get it all loose and get all this stuff broken free. You know, too much of this stuff. I got nearly a cup full. I mean, nearly a quarter of a cup of rust out of it when I brought it home. I just kind of stood it up on its end on some soft wood and just bounced it just a little bit on that soft wood, and man, it just was dumping tons of stuff out of the water jacket on this head. So kind of disappointed in that. This is all those rust particles that I got. I swept them up and put them in a cup because I wanted to actually show that machine shop, hey, this is the kind of product that you let me walk out with after 3.5 weeks of having this little 6-cylinder head. It had that much in it. And I mean, the only thing I can say to their credit is maybe they soaked it that long and it broke this, kind of loosened this stuff up and broke it free. But until it dried, and it didn't dry until I had it a few days, it didn't actually shrivel up and flake off. It was just saturated with that solution that they soak it in. But you know, you would think that they would ultrasonic this or something and break all this stuff loose and get it out of there. But tons of it, it just almost looks like cornflakes. Y'all can see that. It just looks like, you know, cornflakes of rusted metal that's shaving off on the inside of that head. All of that's going to stop up my radiator or my heater core or both. So I've got to kind of probe around in there and see if I can get any more of this out before I put the engine back together. And then I'm gonna knock the freeze plugs out of the block and do the same thing. So they do know what they're doing. I mean, they decked it here. I don't think they call it decking. They flattened the surface of it here. Normally you use the term decking when you're doing the block, but same thing, they just milled it here. I think they took 10 thousandths off and got a nice flat surface here. There is a little bit of pitting that is in the surface of number 4, right around this part of the surface of this head, and the block is not covered by the gasket. The gasket kind of goes out bigger right here, so that's open to the inside of the cylinder basically, and it gives it opportunity to get water on it or something. If the engine sits for a long time, it can pit. I think they had some moisture inside this cylinder when this engine was sitting for some amount of years, probably somewhere in a field. The exhaust ports, as I was talking about in my prior video, have been hardened. They put hardened seats in them. I mean, and all of my valves were good. They just shot peened them and cleaned them, and then put in the hardened seats, and then they did a valve job on it with the grind, so it's got a 3-angle grind on it. The ports, they didn't do anything to it, and they did not flatten the port surface here. They did check it. They said it looked really flat, so they weren't going to mess with it, which is fine. And then they checked all my springs. So all my springs checked out good as well. And again, I mean, they agreed with me. They thought that probably there'd been some work done on this thing. It wasn't all original like it comes from the factory. It had been a valve job had been done before, but they didn't put the hardened seats in it, so the valves were sunken quite a bit. I want to go over here to the engine because while I was waiting on this, I'm starting to do some prep on the engine to get it ready to go back together, and wanted to kind of show you the way I get that thing ready. Been ordering parts, gaskets are coming in. I've got things coming in from Amazon every day pretty much for the last week. Some of those gaskets came in 2 days with my Prime membership. Some of them are, even with Prime, are coming a little bit later because they had to get them, and I guess they don't sell gaskets for 56 Ford 223s very often. But the other thing is, I can't find any ARP bolts that are made to go in this head. So I mean, they don't have a kit for the 1956 to 59 223 Ford engine head bolts. They don't have it like they do for everything else. So what I did was I called the guys down at ARP, and it was really neat with how they worked with me. They basically said, give me all the dimensions of your bolts from under the head to the tip. What is that? I gave it to them. It's just a little bit over 4 inches, and they're 7/16 bolts by 14 thread pattern. The head bolts they found were for a Boss 302, not just a regular 302 or a 289, but a Boss 302. The head bolts for that actually work for this, and there's 20 of them for a V8, and I only need 16 for this, but regardless, I'll have 4 extras. But it was still cheaper to buy that set for that Boss 302 than to buy individual bolts from ARP, which they will do as well. They can find those individual bolts that are the right size, right thread pitch, and the whole 9 yards, and they can just sell you 16 of them. But they were like $3.58 a piece that way, and I think I got this whole set for 37 bucks, 20 of them. So they're sending me that set, or actually I found them on Amazon and ordered them. And then I thought, you know what, you should always replace your flywheel bolts. I mean, those are so key. They take so much force. And so I called them back and I said, hey, here's what I got for flywheel bolts, and they found them. That's the way it works. So I'll have new head bolts from ARP. I'll have new bolts for my flywheel over here also. So those will be new, and I'm gonna torque them to the spec. And that's about it. I mean, I haven't done too much to the truck as far as cleaning up. I need to do that. I need to get under there and clean it up. And then the next thing I'm trying to focus on right now is the motor mount on the front. I've got to figure out how to get that mounted a little bit better than what it was. I wasn't happy with it. Come to find out, this motor's probably out of a 1956 F100. And the reason I say that was because between 56 and 61, they had yet a different mount on the front of them than either the mount from the 61 on or the 56 back. So this actually came off out of a 56, we think. So now I'm ordering all my parts and looking at things right away for a 1956. I think the reason they used it in this truck was they probably ran the other one ragged in the 61, the one that came in it originally. That it was also a 223, I'm sure. And when they went to go rebuild it, somebody probably said, hey, I've got this one that I've already rebuilt. It's bored 40 over. It's got this Fenton exhaust on it, 2-in-1 exhaust. Hey, I'll sell it to you for a good price. And they probably just brought it over and set it in there. And they did. It wasn't until they started mounting it and already made the commitment that they figured out that front mount isn't the same between a 56 and a 61. And then they just jerry-rigged it to get it to work because it was already committed and they'd already said, yeah, I'll buy it. I think that's probably some story that happened with it. Trying to piece it together in my head and make sense of it. So let's move over to the block and I'll show you some stuff over there. All right, over here at the block, I've got it sitting on a little, I'll show you a close up in just a second, but I got it sitting on a little roller, furniture mover dolly that you can get at Harbor Freight. Works real good. It holds up to 1,000 pounds. It's easy to move around my shop, and it's kind of sitting down stable close to the ground. It's just sitting on the oil pan on the bottom. But a couple things that you want to do before you put that head back on is to run with a tap all of your head bolts again. Just run down through them. On this 6-cylinder, I've got a combination of holes. 8 of them around out of the 16 go into the water jacket. So I can run a regular tap, just a regular one that's tapered on the end, all the way down through and get all the threads clean. But the other 8 on the other side are all blind holes. So on that side, I had to get a bottoming tap so I could go all the way down and get really close to the bottom of that hole. And that's important because when I get those new ARP bolts, you know, I don't want them to hit some bad threads, you know, a ½ inch down into the 1-inch hole and start giving me a false torque when I'm torquing them down. I want to get all that torque perfect. If some of you don't know, I called around several places, and if that'll focus there, they did not know what I meant when I said a bottoming tap, but this is what I mean. So the threads go all the way down to right there, full depth. Those threads are full depth, those cutters. And so you can go within, you know, 1/8 of an inch of the bottom with full thread depth. Whereas a tapered one would come all the way back up to about right here, tapering down for starting threads in a brand new, you know, drilled hole. And that's not what we need here. We're just chasing threads basically with this tap. So that's what that is. And I just ran around, used a little bit of WD-40, and they were a little bit crusty, especially the ones that are blind. I mean, when I got down to within 1/4 inch of the bottom, so that last, you know, 1/4 inch that I can get to with this bottoming tap, you know, it was cruddy and nasty. And when I brought this back out, I had all kinds of junk in the flutes of my tap, so I had to clean that out with each hole. But I've gone around and done that now. Now they all spin very freely. If I put this in, you know, I can just spin this thing in. I mean, you see that. It's very easy. The threads are perfect. Bring it right back out. So now those holes are prepped and ready for the head to go back on when I get those ARP bolts tomorrow. I'm using a multi-level steel MLS gasket from Felpro on here, and it comes with a certain coating on it. It looks kind of bluish most of the time. You can see it in the package over there. It's not really blue on this one. And so it goes on dry. You're not really supposed to use anything. A lot of people will use that copper coat on these old engines. You know, they'll spray the thing with a copper coating gasket sealer. And this one, they used that on the last time they built this head, and we saw that the gasket failed. So 1, the bolts didn't get tightened right. 2, the bolts stretched, which probably happened. Or 3, they used a different kind of sealant on here than they really should, and put it on kind of with that sealant, and it didn't do well. But for some reason, the gasket did fail right between number 3 and 4 cylinder. We saw that in the prior video, and so that's why they lost compression. Oh, I wanted to show you one more thing here on the side of the block. You're going to want to wear some safety glasses if you do this, but if you've ever heard of a needler, it's an air tool that just has these needles in the end of it. And all the air tool does is just move these in and out really fast. But if you lay this kind of at an angle or go like that, it will get all of the scale off of this block and prepare it for a wire brush, and then you're ready to do your paint. So I've got the cylinders open right now, so I don't want to do too much, but I did just play with it a little bit right here, and it works great. Let me show you how it works. Safety glasses on. I'll put my other ones right there, hope I won't step on them. And then this is just a little, so. All right, that's how it works. I just wanted to kind of give you a quick demonstration. It's almost addictive to do this because it's so fun. Just kind of, you can just walk around every one of those little nooks and crannies on that side of that block and just get that old scaly paint off. And it takes it down pretty good. Now with a little bit of a wire brush and then some brake clean or something to get the oil off of it, the block and the head, when I get it put on here, will be ready for a fresh coat of paint. So. Look inside that hole right there. Flashlight, can you see that? Big chunk right there. I'll try to lift it out. If I can hold my flashlight, the camera, and get my needle nose in here. All of this will stop up the radiator. You can see it in there, in between the cylinders, just packed in there. So I'm going to get it out the best I can, but there's a good chance there's still some radiator fluid in that one. But there's a good chance that all of this is going to clog up my radiator when I get going again. Man, that's quite a bit. Doesn't help with cooling either. This is the block vent right here, actually. Well, my parts keep piling up. The UPS man just dropped those off. That's brass freeze plugs and the rear engine motor mounts. So I got the little front one there, and that's the two rears. Anyway, this lets me see inside my cylinder a little bit again down in here. And was able to just stir up some of that mess, and then I took my vacuum. I put a brand new filter on the vacuum, so I'm about to reveal how much crap I got out of there, but I probably worked for an hour just with different picks and screwdrivers and things, and just kept getting all the crusty stuff around those cylinders in there broken free, and then just kept vacuuming it out. I kept putting different attachments on my vacuum, just getting the holes and crevices. I'd shine a light through these ports right here, through the holes in the top of the deck, so I could see real good. I just set my flashlight on there, just go to work. Alright, that's how much. Probably another quarter of a cup of all the crudola that was down in that block. All of that just clogs the radiator so bad. You know, just chunks of stuff. Well, anyway, thought I'd show you that. I mean, it's worthwhile probably to clean out stuff, flush stuff like that out. I think I'm going to roll this whole thing outside and just flush that water jacket. Ready to go on my engine stand. Bring it up a little. There you go. That's pretty much straight up and down. But probably one of the first things I'm going to do is rotate it, because I want to get the water out of it that I just flushed it. I got it on the stand. I took this thing outside when it was still in that little cart on that furniture mover, and after scraping around inside here between the cylinders through all the freeze plugs and everything, I just got back here with a power hose, and I had this all taped off on top, and I pushed water through there really hard, and the water pump was off the front, and man, I mean, chocolate milk nastiness came out for a good 5 minutes. And finally, when it started running clear, I shot around this way, came to each one of these holes, and shot around behind, between all the cylinders and everything, and just kept flushing it. And finally just got it to run clear. And now when I look in here with my flashlight, it looks pretty dang good actually. it cleaned out quite a bit. Anyway, there you go, guys. That's kind of a quick update. I got it on the stand now, so I'm gonna continue to clean it up, flip it over, get the oil pan off, check out the lower end of this thing, and I'm thinking I'm gonna change the rear main seal while I'm at it. So till the next one, I'll see you guys. More parts. Flywheel bolts and head bolts.